Grabbing a very big brush, we're going to start this painting today by throwing a little bit of purple and a little bit of white paint on there, and then just streaking those two colors all throughout that background. We can let it be a little bit more purple sometimes, or a little bit lighter with the white mixed in there other times. It can even get solid white. That's absolutely fine. The streakiness of that paint is just really going to play into that setting sky feeling. So just a little bit of purple, a little bit of white, big long side-to-side brush strokes to start filling that in, and then sprinkling on a little bit of red paint just to tint that, and a little bit of yellow as well. Not putting that over the whole painting, but just sprinkling in a little bit here or there. That big set and change right there is just me flipping on my painting light, realizing I was recording in a lackluster fashion for you guys as it was not on. And then just the same colors at the bottom without as much white. So that very bottom section is just the ground or the land or whatever you wish behind the tree line, and it's that same purple, white, red, and yellow, just a little less light than the sky. And then switching over to a more rounded brush shape, we're starting with big clouds at the top with red and purple paint mixed together, and then just sprinkling in a few little clouds throughout the middle of the sky and even a little bit lower. And then just grabbing a little bit of white paint, not even cleaning out that brush. You can see here just a little bit of plain white, even with that purple and red already on there, just to fluff those clouds out a little bit, kind of hitting the really rounded parts of where we want that cloud to be down there at the bottom, and adding a few extra little ones. Same brush, just some white and yellow, adding a little bit of our setting sun here, and then a little bit of reflection onto the land or the ground. It's just yellow and white, doing a little half circle down here at the top of that land piece with yellow and white, and then sprinkling on some little side-to-side streaks of a reflection on the ground. And you can kind of play around with that a little bit, get it more yellow sometimes, get it more white other times. And then using the exact same colors and the exact same brush, we're just going to fan out little lines all the way around that half circle, just pushing them out. It's going to grab your cloud color a little bit, and that is absolutely okay. It's just going to help add to that little streaky feeling you get of a setting sun. Then sprinkling in a little bit of an orange to get that wonderful nighttime glow now that that yellow and white is a little drier. And again, taking that color, pushing it through the setting sun rays, and then that same yellow, orange, and white mixture, just because that's what's already on the brush, pushing it into the bottom of the clouds. This is where that sun is reflecting off of the bottom of the clouds. And once again, this is just a rounded brush shape with a little bit of water to help that paint move around. Then even hitting these top clouds, the top of the bottom clouds, since they're lower, they're getting a little bit more of that sunlight, maybe adding in a few extra little teeny tiny clouds here or there with this color, really getting the bottom of these upper clouds as well, just sprinkling that orange and white mixture all around those clouds, anywhere that sun is just beaming off of them. And then you can kind of smooth it in a little bit here or there with some wet and purple and red mixed in. If it's just sitting right on top of that purple and red instead of blending, you can grab a little bit of that wet paint, mix those two together, and then blend it out. And then now that this orange is set in a little bit, we can grab our yellow and white mixture one more time, jump in there, add a little bit of that highlight with the yellow and white into those clouds, kind of right on top of where we put that orange. Not completely covering the orange, just adding a little bit of a white and yellow mixed highlight where the orange is, because if it's getting the orange, then something nearby is just getting a little bit of that yellow and white highlight mix, even hitting the bottom of these very top clouds. The very top clouds, super dark, they're way up there in the sky. We're even going to add a little bit more to those later, so just focusing on the bottom of those with these lighter colors. And then of course we can hit our little sun rays again, just fanning out all around that circle. And here we go, jumping back in with a little bit of purple. This is not got any red mixed in it, but we're going to fix that in 1 second, just to darken up the top of this here. where it's really turning into nighttime at the top. There we go, just some horizontal strokes to get it nice and filled in, and then we can of course fluff it up a little bit. And this is just a little bit more purple, a little bit more red, and just fluffing and fluffing until it looks like a nice big sheet of clouds. The wonderful thing about all of this is it's your background, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. A lot of it's going to be hidden by trees. If there's anything you're not entirely in love with, just put a tree right over it. No one's going to know it was there. Once again, jumping in with a little bit of a highlight. This here is just a little bit of red and then orange and yellow mixed together for a tiny highlight, just so that those clouds at the very top are not all one tone. And then of course adding a little bit of purple and white as well to get a little bit more fluff in those clouds, to have them all be very full and not be just one big solid purple area. Okay, down here starting to throw on some trees. This is just a more square brush and black paint, and all of the trees are the exact same thing. They're just a black line, some of them thicker, some of them thinner, some of them straighter, some of them more wobbly wiggly, bumpy, if you will, where they're more tree-like, like nature is, and have weird growths or whatever it is that makes a tree not be perfectly straight. It's going to look just like nature when you get those little wiggles in your paintbrush, so that's perfect that you get that. Getting a little thicker sometimes with our tree trunks, getting a little bit thinner other times. Maybe pushing in a little tree right on the edge of that painting, because of course the forest is continuing outside of this. This is just a little snapshot of the forest. Maybe giving a little leaning tree here or there, maybe getting them a little bit more of a diagonal look, a little bit more branchy. Maybe you want one tree that turns into two trees. It's all just the exact same thing though. On this painting, you just grab that black paint and a squarish shaped brush, or even an angled brush. I really like angled brushes for doing flat lines, and then pushing in a bunch of lines. They just go straight from the bottom to the top of the painting, getting them a little thicker sometimes, a little thinner other times, a little straighter, a little bit more angled, a little bit more wiggly, a little bit less wiggly other times, just sprinkling them around, making it look like it's a nice and full forest, but leaving enough room that we can add our branches and our leaves later on. Maybe if you're getting a lot of them, they're all one size, you sprinkle in a smaller trunk to help that out. Maybe your trunks are a little bit bigger than this overall, that's fine. Just make sure you vary your sizes as well. And of course, this is a great time that if there's something from our background we're not entirely in love with, we can just put a tree right over this. Maybe one of our little sun rays wasn't exactly perfect, or we have a weird puff in a cloud. Just take the time to get that black tree covering up any error you don't want to have. This is looking so good. You're doing a great job. I'm very proud of you. With something like black paint, just keep it nice and smoothly flowing by adding a little bit of water to it and really packing the paintbrush down to give you that nice little line. You do that by just pressing off all of the extra paint on one side that's flat and flipping over and really pressing off all of the extra paint on the other flat side of the brush as well. We are almost done with our forest here, just getting the last couple of them on, taking your time. If you're really in love with this forest, we can be done with this painting whenever we get all of the trunks on here. However, it's a pretty fun surprise to get all of those little branches and then all of the little leaves on there. So for the branches here, this is an angled paintbrush. It's much smaller. You can use anything that you're comfortable making really tiny lines with. I just have a lot of practice doing this with my makeup, so I use one of these little angled brushes just like I would do for that. And all of these branches are just random letter Y's. So it's like a little line coming off of the trunk, and then on that line you make another line to make it, that one look like a letter Y. Here we go, you can see that letter Y right there better, and that little letter Y. Here's a big letter Y, and then of course you can always sprinkle in more and more letter Ys on the same branch, and this can overlap other trunks as well. There's no limit to how long or short one of these littler branches can be, but it's just the letter Y over and over again. You can even just put one little branch on and let the base of the trunk be part of the letter Y. You can get really long with the branches, especially if you've got a bigger space. That's a great place to display a really big branch that has a bunch of little branches on it, or even just a big branch without littler branches. One of the great things about this painting is there's no science behind this. You really just throw these on anywhere. You kind of jump around a little bit, like do some over here, do some over there, go to this place, blank space, and do them. You could do them going off the top of the painting or off the sides of the painting or off the bottom of the painting, and they're going to look good anywhere. It's a tree, and trees just grow where trees want to grow. There's no arguing with a tree if it wants to grow there, so you can make yours exactly how you want them to be. And this painting even looks really amazing without leaves on it as well. So if you get it to a happy place and you love it, just leave it. That's okay. You don't have to do the next step, but I'm going to show it to you. Of course, I'm loving the way your branches are looking. Just keep adding those really small letter Ys all over those trunks with that black paint and whatever brush it is you like using, whether it's one of those flatter square brushes, this angled brush like this, or even one of those really tiny round brushes that you twirl up to get the small lines. And just take your time to spread those out wherever you're comfortable. They can also be like thicker sometimes, thinner other times. Even one branch can start out thicker in the middle and be a little bit thinner at the edge wherever it connects. Usually branches overall are a little bit smaller where they end and a little bit bigger where they start on the trunk, but again, they get a little bit weird sometimes, so it's okay if you have some variance in your branch shapes where they kind of get a little bit of a bubble here or there. If you look at a real tree, they do that. It makes sense. Alright, getting a few more of those little branches on here, making all of those letter Ys, getting them a little bit thicker sometimes, thinner other times, adding more sometimes, adding less, and just doing it really randomly and sporadic all over that painting. Just getting a nice spread so that there's open spaces and then spaces that are also very full of little branches and what will be leaves coming in just a moment. When it comes to the leaves, they don't have to connect to a branch. A lot of these are just going to be sprinkled in the air, and we're going to believe that there's a branch in there connecting it somewhere, even if it doesn't look like it. This is a filbert brush. Filbert is just a more of a rounded end on a flatter paintbrush. So we'll have two big flat sides and then one little rounded edge, and it's again just that black paint. And you can kind of just take this brush and tap it with varying amounts of pressure, so be like really gentle sometimes for really tiny dots, be a little bit more full pressure other times to get some more of a big leaf here or there, sprinkling those leaves on some places that are on branches, other places that they're not on branches. You can leave a branch that looks really good without any leaves on it, so you can show that off, and you just kind of twirl it around in different directions to get all kinds of different shapes out of this brush while you're going. So varying the angle you hold it at, varying the pressure, tapping in those little leaves all over the place. Sometimes on branches, sometimes just in the air, sometimes even directly on the trunks. We can throw a little bit of leaves there. They'll make sense anywhere you put them, even if they're not connected to anything, or even if it's like a really big patch of leaves that have far too many compared to everywhere else. You can kind of sprinkle those in anywhere. You can throw them at the bottom of the painting, at the top of the painting, and that is just about it. You have yourself a beautiful forest sunset. It looks amazing. You've done a wonderful job. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe for the next painting, and of course drop a comment if there's something you want to see.